Welcome back to Carolina Journal Radio. I'm Mitch Kokai. If you believe in the importance of free enterprise, it's likely that you'll support lawmakers who also support free enterprise. Well, how can you tell whether they do or don't? Our next guest will help us address that question. Beavon Gravely is Executive Director of the North Carolina Free Enterprise Foundation, or NCFREE. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about this tool that you have that's available to people who are interested in politics, interested in business, interested in free enterprise, that helps them determine whether their lawmakers support free enterprise.
Right. So we, at the end of every odd year or long session for the General Assembly, we produce a legislative business rating. And this rating really gauges and rates members based on their understanding of free enterprise as a philosophy.
This is something that you could compile in a number of different ways. Tell us how you do your rating.
So we have two parts to it. We have a subjective and an objective. Subjective is we involve lobbyists, government affairs professionals, key business leaders in the state to provide a rating 1 to 100 in increments of 10 of how they feel like members at the General Assembly are in their disposition toward free enterprise. And the second part is objective, and that's their votes straight up. There's no opinion in that. It's how they vote on particular pieces of legislation.
So you combined, as you said, the objective and subjective, and a number of different votes, not just one or two here and there?
Correct. We have 12 in the Senate and 13 in the House that we selected. We have a research committee that gets together toward the end of session, and they go through and look at what did this session hold in terms of free enterprise. So each year is different. Because the opportunity to have votes that lend itself toward going in the free enterprise direction or supporting pro-business efforts are different every session. And so this session, it worked out that we had 12 in the Senate and 13 in the House. And some votes we looked at multiple bills, but some bills were repeated. And this year we looked at particular House resolutions to the appointment of 2 members to the Industrial Commission and then a Superior Court judge. And the reason why we looked at those is it expanded the way we view what's impacting the business community in North Carolina.
Briefly, can you tell us some of the other things that you counted? Are we talking about support for incentives or things of that sort?
There's no incentive legislation and votes in this particular one. In the past, we've had incentive votes. We had the MAP Act. We had Small Business Health Care, the Farm Act. Some pretty popular names this session made their way into our rating. It was hard to really look past those when we look at the importance of business and the involvement that those have on business in the state.
Well, that gives people a sense of the types of things that you measured. So we're chatting with Beavon Gravely, who is Executive Director of NCFREE. Now we kind of know how you put it together. Let's talk a little bit about how things turned out. So in general, are lawmakers as a whole supportive of free enterprise, or is there some work to do?
As a whole, we've seen a steady uptick in the ratings on average moving toward 100, which 100 is the highest free enterprise rating, and 0 is the lowest. There's been a steady incline over the last decade. And that's one thing that we show in our report. We did some infographics that really summarize the information to show the comparative nature of the report. It's cool to see where ratings are, but it's also really important to put that in context.
Now, NCFREE is a nonpartisan group, but some people will be interested in looking at, are the Republicans more free enterprise or Democrats more free enterprise? Is there any difference? What did your ratings show?
There is a difference. Republicans do have a higher free enterprise rating, but interestingly, the Democrats in the Senate have a higher rating than the Democrats in the House, and the Republicans in the House have a higher rating than the Democrats in the House. And usually there's conversation about which chamber is more fiscally conservative, and we do a chart, an interesting analysis that shows the chambers have gone back and forth between which one is more fiscally conservative in its approach to free enterprise, which I think is encouraging. because they're continuing to see some challenge in that.
Well, that's interesting, and it might also be because of the variation of what types of things
Definitely.
come up from
Yeah.
year to year. So beyond Republicans versus Democrats, now let's talk about some of the individual performers. When you looked at the list, maybe let's start with Senate. Who were some of the top performers?
Top performers, we have Senator Paul Newton. He was top, and President Pro Tem Phil Berger was 6th on the list. And all of these members, when we talk about the number, where they rank, we're talking about a 0.25 difference in their rating score. So we're still dealing with a good number of people who are rating above 90.
So someone 1st or 6th, probably not a huge amount
Not
of
a
difference.
big difference.
Maybe a big difference between someone who's 5 and 45.
Correct. Yeah.
And looking on the House side, who were some of the top folks?
John Bell was the first on the House side, and Speaker Moore was rated 17. And I think that speaks to the strength of his caucus, actually, that so many of them are rated above him. And top performing Democrats in the House were Representative Don Davis Representative Ken Goodman and Representative Michael Ray.
And then on the Senate side, I'm guessing that one of the top performers is Don Davis.
Yes, is Don Davis, and also Senator Blue, who was at our event at the Leadership Luncheon in the first week in December.
You put these ratings out. How do you hope people will use them? Either the lawmakers themselves or
Yes.
people who are looking at their lawmakers.
Yeah, the value that we have is that we at the Free Enterprise Foundation don't have a legislative agenda. So we evaluate the legislation as a whole for this session instead of saying, like, these are particular pieces of legislation that we wanted to get passed. And so I think that makes the ratings stronger in the sense that we are nonpartisan. We're just looking to advance free enterprise. And so when people, whether you're an interest group or a lobbyist group or a PAC or members, we are a gauge that just provides that particular outlook and can be used as a foundation for future decisions.
Do you hope people will look at these ratings, and if they see someone who rates highly, say, okay, that's very good, and if they rate a little bit lower, talk to them about, I'd like to see you more interested in free enterprise and supporting business?
Yeah, absolutely. The impact of this legislation or this particular report that we do is, I think it's pretty limitless. Because it does approach from such a clear perspective, meeting with members, talking to them about the way that they approach, whether it's through the subjective rating or their straight up votes in the objective. It's certainly a conversation starter.
If people want to learn more, including the ratings for all 170 members of the General Assembly, what's the best way for them to get this information?
Visit our website, ncfree.org. And we have the legislative business rating from this year as well as the last decade of LBRs.
That is the voice of Anna Beavon Gravely. She is Executive Director of the North Carolina Free Enterprise Foundation, or as we've been calling them, NCFREE. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.